The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gam Podcast Network is brought to you by Morning Fantasy. They bring you all for new customers. Play just $5, give $50 bonus funds. Use the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gam Podcast here on the Sports Gam Podcast Network. It's currently Sunday night, December 21st, around 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again, going solo for this pod. Time to get into the four semifinal matchups taking place in Chengdu and in Hangzhou on Monday morning. So we're going to get into those four matchups in a second. Before we get into the actual recap of the quarters and the preview of the semis, a reminder that you can help support the show by liking, subscribing on YouTube. A reminder, you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Podcast available, of course, on YouTube. It's also on podcast format on Spotify and Apple. So you can watch it either way. But don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great tennis merch. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs. High quality, very affordable, and also different colors. So check it out. Think you'll like the options that we have. Plus, a reminder that if you want all of SGPN's content in one easy location, check out the SGPN app in the App Store, free to download. So once again, if you want easy access to all of our picks and podcasts for free, check out the SGPN app on the App Store. So starting off with the recap of what happened in the quarters. Overall, a great episode for us. Ended up sweeping. Nice bounce back for us. We ended up losing both plays for the preview-outright episode for the first round. Bounce back with a nice and easy sweep here in the quarter. So for the lock, we had Bublik in straight sets at minus 115. Absolute joke. He lost 2 games in the entire match. It was a bloodbath. It was over very quickly, and Bublik did dominate from start to finish. Nice and easy for the lock. For the dog, nice win as well, as we had Royer and Tien over 2.5 sets at plus 143. I was torn preparing the plays for either Royer money line or the over 2.5 sets. Either would have gotten there, as Royer did win in 3. Plus 143, though, can't complain. Royer won the first set in a breaker. Tien got a break immediately in the second and held out. Then Royer eventually did win the third, but never in doubt for the lock and dog. Nice and easy. Look for the sweep here for the semis. Now, for the actual recap, though, of the quarterfinals, not a ton of drama, but some. You had some that went to 3 sets, but the final set was very lopsided. So you had Tabilo when they're beating O'Connell. I did like Tabilo minus the games on the spread they got there, as he won 6-2 in the third. Nice performance from Tabilo. He looks very good. And O'Connell gave it a good run, ran out of gas there in the third set, and Tabilo buried him 6-2 in the final set. Nakashima did beat Giron in 3. Liked the over in that one. Thought Nakashima would win, but I thought it'd be competitive, and it was, as Nakashima did end up getting the job done there in a final set breaker. Musetti beat Basilashvili. That one we were a bit off on. Thought Basilashvili would keep it somewhat close. He did not, as Musetti did win 6-3, 6-3. Never in doubt, won comfortably. Good win for him. And Shevchenko, we thought would win against Daniel. Did like the over 2.5 sets there as well. And that got there, as Shevchenko did win in 3. Once again, 6-2 in the final set. So got everything right besides the Musetti match. Not a bad start to the quarterfinal recap. For Hangzhou, we thought Echeverry would end up winning, and he was up a set. Then he got injured, and Moutet looked pretty flat. But either way, Moutet got away with it, was up a break in the second set. Echeverry couldn't continue, ended up quitting. Royer beat Tien in 3. Tien was actually up a break in the third set, then lost 6 of the last 7 games, as Royer has been on a phenomenal run, and he was able to win in 3. Then you had Bublik beating the lucky loser 6-1, 6-1. Complete waste of time. Good for us. We had the straight sets. Minus 115 was a joke, so nice and easy win there. Then you had currently number 2 on the ATP Clown rankings, according to me, Medvedev, who had a golden opportunity to advance to the semis, was up a set and a break against Wu, was serving for the match, and then in classic Medvedev fashion, double faulted the breakaway. Then lost the breaker, 7-5. Third set came around, and he ended up getting broken midway through, and he lost in 3. Medvedev can change the head coach, can't change the mental, I'd say, struggles he's had recently. Closing out matches happen again, as Wu was down but not out, and he got the job done as he came back and he won in 3. Great win for him. A really, really bad loss for Medvedev, and we'll see where he goes from here. But it's been rinse and repeat for about 2 years. Medvedev's in decent spots. Then he blows some chances to kind of put the dagger in his opponent, and then his opponent comes back. So basically how it goes, but it was a fun matchup, went down to the wire. Medvedev should have won in straight sets, served for the match, and choked, and then eventually did lose in 3. So that was I'd say that was the most entertaining finish to all the matches. The other thing I'll talk about, though, is briefly the Nakashima match against Giron. Not really anything in terms of a deep dive, but there was one point in the breaker which I thought was very controversial, and I thought that it was a pretty bad call. They called hindrance on Giron in the 4-2 point. Nakashima was winning 4-2, and Nakashima is trying to hit a forehand down the line. Giron's trying to run to chase after it. The ball hits the net, and then it trickles over. So Giron has to stop short and then try to run forward towards the ball. He made some type of noise while he was going after the ball, and the chair umpire called hindrance and just gave the point to Nakashima, which I thought was a really bad call. Now, Giron, I thought was going to have a mental breakdown at the time. He didn't. He kept his composure better than I would have. But the whole point of hindrance as a rule is to interrupt your opponent's shot, to make some I'd say sportsman-like noises to try to ruin the focus and the timing of your opponent. It was Giron's shot to hit. So I don't really know how that's called hindrance. He was going after the ball, made some type of noise because he was stopping short trying to run towards the ball. And the chair umpire, I guess, accused him of trying to mess with Nakashima. It was Giron's ball to hit, so I don't really understand how that's supposed to interrupt Nakashima. Whatever. Nakashima won. It was good for us. We have Nakashima to win the event, and he's in the semis. But I thought that hindrance call was atrocious, and I wanted to mention that in that third set breaker. You might have seen Giron lose anyway, but there's a very, very big difference between 4-3 and 5-2. And it felt like once that happened, the match was over. And it was, as Nakashima got the job done there in 3. But either way, point is for the card itself. Decent amount of close matchups. 5 out of the 8 went to a third set. Not a ton of drama. The Wu one had, and the Nakashima one had a final set breaker, which was pretty straightforward. Nakashima was up 3-0, was up 5-2. Really anticlimactic from an actual tiebreak perspective in a final set. But once again, overall, a pretty good balance of competitive and straightforward tennis. So time to move on into the preview of the semis. Other than that, though, the Laver Cup action has been unfolding, and Team World actually been pretty good. I saw de Minaur beat Mensik today. The real story of the I'd say matches from yesterday. I already talked about Zverev just completely falling apart against de Minaur, but the main takeaway was actually the late match. Good for Taylor Fritz. Look, even if it's going to be an exhibition, you got to beat Alcaraz at some point, and he won 6-3, 6-2. Does Alcaraz care? Probably not. Did his blonde hair look good? Not really. But the point is, Fritz won in straight sets, only dropped 5 games. Good for him. Does it matter? No. But either way, nice win for Fritz. If you want to count, I'd say moral victories, that counts as one in exhibition. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the quarter recap. Time to move on into the semis in Chengdu and in Hangzhou. Before we get into those 4 matchups, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, Book.ag. So using to bet on football, college football, use the prop builder, second to none. Their motto is simple, bet on anything, anywhere, anytime. You could use crypto for deposits and payouts when you sign up for a new account. Use the code SGPN for 100%. Payback bonus $500 for new customers. Book.ag promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is America's #1 sports futures market. Since Novig is an exchange, you'll be getting some of those prices in the market. It's available in 30 states. Download the Novig app. Get $50 when you spend just $5 with the promo code SGPN. Get on the action with Novig. Promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish recapping the quarters. Time to move on to the semis for Hangzhou and for Chengdu. Starting off with the Chengdu semifinals. Now, I know in previous rounds, we were starting at around midnight Eastern, 1 a.m. We have a lot of time. So the semis start at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So you have a lot of time to get your bets in for these matches. For the matchups in Chengdu. First one is supposed to be close. Second one, biggest favorite on the card by a mile. So for this one, you have Nakashima being favored over Tabilo. He's about -170. You have Tabilo at around +150. For the spread, -2.5 for Nakashima, plus 2.5 for Tabilo. The over-under in sets 2.5. The over is plus 136. For the set spread, Nakashima in straight sets is plus 139. Tabilo to win a set's minus 180. And if you want to go for team totals, I see 12.5 juiced for Nakashima or 13 flat. And I see Tabilo at around 12.5 or 11.5, very heavily juiced. So for the head-to-head meetings, very close. Faced off 2 times, not really that recent. Faced off last year in the Davis Cup and last year in Miami. And we saw Nakashima and Tabilo split those 2 meetings. Plus, they both did not end in straight sets. So we ended up seeing a very close battle between the 2 of them. Nakashima did win the more recent meeting in the Davis Cup. That had 2 breakers in it. Point is, it's supposed to be close on paper, and the head-to-head history backs it up. Tabilo, though, has been in great form as he went through qualifying, and he has only dropped 2 sets. Beat O'Connell in 3, beat Darderi in straight sets, beat Thompson in straight sets, beat Lloyd Harris in 3 in qualifying, and beat Riggle in qualifying as well in straight sets. So Tabilo has been good. It has not been fluky. When healthy, I like him a lot. You might remember we actually backed him to an grass event a couple years ago, and we won at a pretty decent payout. I like his game. We know that he beat Djokovic on clay. The fact is he's a solid overall player. Durability has been a concern. Solid lefty serve, like the variety, which is why he was able to outlast O'Connell in those 3 sets. You could argue that with Nakashima's, I'd say, unforced error issues at times, the variety can work to his benefit in this matchup. Now, Nakashima has been looking good. Significantly less matches than Tabilo, who had to go through qualifying as well. Nakashima played 2 matches, of course, because he had a bye in the first round. Beat Cheng in straight sets and beat Giron in 3. Now, I think it's going to be a close matchup on paper. I think Nakashima being favored makes sense. He's played less tennis. He is the higher-seeded player, and his serve is very, very dangerous on these courts. So, for reference, Nakashima landed 81% of his first serves against Giron, and he's already a very good server. If he serves that well, nobody's beating him. Now, 81% is outrageous. I think you'll see some regression where he serves somewhere in the 60s, if I had to guess, for percentage. But Giron, return-wise, really couldn't do much against that, and he still won a set in the process. So I think Tabilo is actually more alive than people think for this matchup. He's been good in overall success in the head-to-head, as each meeting went to a deciding set, and he did split those 2 on hard court. I think Nakashima might end up winning. I think for the sake of the matchup, though, I like the over. I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup that goes the distance, maybe a couple breakers in there. But I think you're looking at what could be maybe the same script as the last round against Giron. Split the first 2 sets. There's a breaker somewhere in there, and you fly over. I don't mind that. Give me the over for this matchup. Think it'll be close. Think if Tabilo wins, it's probably going 3. Nakashima, in theory, could win in straight sets if Tabilo's health, or maybe just a lack of, I'd say, time off in between matches might catch up to him. Think he should be fine, though. So I see this being a close matchup that goes the distance. Give me the over for this one. Moving on to the next matchup. Biggest favorite in the card, you have Musetti taking on Shevchenko. So for the pricing, Musetti's minus 470. You have Shevchenko at plus 350. For the spread, you have minus 4.5 for Musetti, plus 4.5 for Shevchenko. The over-under is at 20.5 games, minus 120 on the over, even money on the under. Now, for the set spread, Musetti in straight sets, minus 170. Shevchenko to win a set is plus 130. The over 2.5 sets is plus 202. So Musetti had a great, let's say, return to action post-US Open. Beat Prismic in 3, and he looked great into that 3rd set. Then killed Basilashvili. Now, Shevchenko has had a bunch of wars which he survived. Beat Daniel in 3, beat Perricard in 3, and beat Monfils in 2 and change because Monfils got injured and retired. So Shevchenko's beaten some decent competition. Daniel, I think we'd agree in hindsight, it's a pretty favorable draw in a quarterfinal matchup. But should Musetti be this big of a favorite? To be honest, I understand it. I think Musetti should win this. Now, you're looking at the weapons that both guys possess. I'm not sure Shevchenko really has much in the tool belt to find openings against Musetti. He's not exactly an amazing server. He's fine. I'd say he's an extremely gritty player. He'll go down swinging. He can be a bit emotional and unstable at times, but I do like the fact that Shevchenko does provide a lot of effort point in and point out. The problem is with Musetti's firepower and his defensive positioning, Do I think Shevchenko can actually bully Musetti around the court? I don't think he can enough to get the job done. Maybe a set, but I doubt it. I think Musetti wins comfortably. Looking at them play in the event so far, they faced off in the French Open a couple years ago, and Musetti won handily, only losing 4 games in the entire match. Now, clay, we know, is Musetti's bread and butter. Shevchenko, not so much. But the point is, I think Musetti, with his overall form right now, great run in the U.S. Open as well, before losing to Sinner. Even in the Sinner match, he had moments. He lost handily on the scorecard, but I thought that he looked decently if you watch the match unfold. I think he's got too many weapons, and I think that he's got too good of a court coverage for Shevchenko to deal with. I think it's going to be pretty lopsided, personally. I think Musetti wins in straight sets. That's kind of where I'm at. Shevchenko had a great run here. I believe he was plus, what was it, 25,000 to win the event? I think he had the longest odds of anybody to win the event. And I like him as a player. But for the matchup in itself, I'm really just not interested. I think Musetti wins comfortably, and I think it ends up being a pretty similar scoreline to the Boss-Solishvili match, like 6-3, 6-3, 6-3, 6-2. I just think at the end of the day, you're looking at Shevchenko's resume so far. Monfils got hurt. That worked out to his benefit. Pericard can't return to save his life. And Daniel has been in really bad form all year. Found some form in qualifying. But I think the draw has been okay for Shevchenko. Massive step up for me in competition. I'll go with the favorite here handily. Give Musetti in straight sets. For value, maybe the games, but 4.5 is kind of expensive. The under 20.5, I understand, but I could see maybe a 7-5 or 7-6 in there. Shevchenko team total under probably at 9 or 9.5. I think it gets ugly if I have to give my prediction for this one. Now, I see a question from Dark if I think Zverev finally beats Fritz. I'm going to say no. Zverev no-showed the match against de Minaur. Was a clown in the entire process, and Fritz just beat Alcaraz. I'm not going to bother. I think Zverev is still a head case. Fritz seems to have his head screwed on better than Zverev. He has a mental block against Djokovic, but Fritz has been in better form in the event, and he's been very good in the head-to-head against Zverev. I'll go Fritz if I have to pick one, but I'm not going to bet anything in the Davis Cup. I have no interest in betting on exhibition tennis. I see Joe asking if I have any thoughts for the first quarter in the Chiefs game. To be honest, no. I think Wilson throws a pick if you want a prop, so I don't mind Wilson interception in that game. But nothing really else for that one. I think the Chiefs cover if I have to go for a spread. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the semis in Chengdu. Time to move on into Hangzhou. So for the matchups here, these two matchups should be at least closer according to the betting lines than Chengdu. So for the first one, you have Moutet taking on Royer. Not the matchup we thought we'd get for the semis. You have Moutet at minus 145. You have Royer plus 125. For the spread, minus 1.5 games for Moutet, plus 1.5 for Royer. The over-under for games at 22.5. For the set spread, I see Moutet in straight sets at plus 157. Royer to win sets minus 205. And Royer in straight sets is plus 280. For the over 2.5 sets, I see over 2.5 at plus 139. Now, for the head-to-head, we have nothing to talk about. They never played against each other. Now, for the form so far, Moutet has gotten by. Very impressive marathon win against Kaza, which took about 4 hours. I thought he'd be out of gas against Etcheverry, and he kind of was. He was not playing well. Etcheverry looked very good. Then he got injured, and Moutet got gifted a spot in the semis because Etcheverry's body betrayed him. So Moutet didn't really look the part of a semifinalist in the quarters, and he got the job done anyway. So I think Moutet, we know, can be dangerous with his variety, with his unpredictability. And Royer does have kind of one gear, which is putting everything pedal to the metal. So Moutet can maybe extract some errors from him, use the drop shot, disrupt the timing from Royer. Also the biggest match of Royer's career, so that could be a nerves factor. Didn't look like an issue against Tien, down a break in the third, and he ended up winning 6 of the last 7 games. But for this one, Royer has been impressive so far in the event. Went through qualifying, and he's been great. Beat Chen, beat Spaziri, ended up beating Kovacevic in 3, beat Rublev in straight sets, and beat Tien in 3 sets. Decent trio of wins there, especially Rublev in straight sets. Nice showing there. And Moutet hasn't really shown much. The Kaza win's good. Kaz is still young. You could argue Mutet was a decent favorite in that one, but it was still a marathon match. Most importantly, though, the reason why I was going to... Sorry, he was minus 125 against Kaza. So not a big favorite, but still a good win nonetheless. The point is, I was not a fan of the spot for Mutet with the fatigue. And luckily, he only played an hour. And then Echeverry quit. So Mutet got to get off court quickly, gets to recover the exact situation he needed in order to potentially make the final. But the point is, for this price of 145, it feels expensive to me. Mutet has not really looked the part of a player that's very comfortable on the courts here. He won an epic against Kaza, fighting off 2 match points. Then he got bailed out by an injury. Echeverry was beating him. Yes, he was down a break in the second set once the injury kicked in. And then eventually Echeverry just could not continue at all, and he quit entirely. So Mutet has gone a pretty, I'd say, interesting path so far. Royer has earned his spot and then some. He's been incredible, beating Tien, beating Rublev, and Kovacevic, who made a final in Mexico earlier this year. A nice trio of wins. I think the dog's pretty live here. I think Royer is being disrespected here. I think that he should be closer, in my opinion, to like plus 110. I think it's close. I think Mutet being around minus 130 sounds about right. I think 145 feels expensive. I like the over in this matchup, though. I think Royer is going to have a similar, I'd say, outcome to what he did against Tien, which is off to a pretty good start. Couple of hiccups along the way. He'll give up a break or two with unforced errors, and I think Mutet can keep the points long, which should maximize the chances for Royer to hit some errors. I see a marathon here. Give me Royer in 3 as my choice for this one. Moving on to the last match on the card, you have probably the most anticipated one on the card. You have Wu taking on Bublik. Now, Bublik owned his last opponent as he lost 2 games the entire match. Wu has had a very, very drama-filled tournament so far, as he went to 3 sets against Manarino, 3 sets against Korda, and 3 sets against Medvedev. A nice collection of wins, but a lot of time on court. Spent over 3 hours against Medvedev, and we know Bublik spent no time on court, beating his opponent in 53 minutes. Less than an hour. Ouch. It was a bloodbath. Now, Bublik, we know, has been in great form for the last couple of months. He's minus 236. I see Wu at around plus 190. For the spread, I see minus 3.5 for Bublik, plus 3.5 for Wu. For the set spread, you have Bublik in straight sets at plus 105. You have Wu to win a set at minus 135. The over 2.5 sets is plus 164. Now, I understand Bublik had a very easy opponent in the quarters, but damn, he looked good. And Wu has got a lot of firepower. So despite the lack of, I'd say, recent resume due to injury for Wu, he is a former champion, as he won in Dallas a couple of years ago, beating Isner in a crazy final. Point is, I think Wu's a very good player. And I've said this before, I do question the durability, question the fitness, but his skill is undeniable. He's a very solid player. Now, Bublik, though, is playing like a top 10 guy in the world, and he has been playing like that for months. So for the matchup in itself, 230 feels pretty cheap, actually, for Bublik. I thought it would be around 300, maybe 350. I mean, if Bublik plays like that, I know that his opponent was a lot worse than Wu is, but that's a very cheap line for a guy that we saw make a deep run in the US Open, showed up here. He has not gone broken yet in the entire event, and he played for 53 minutes in the quarters, while Wu, who's in his first series tournament back from injury on the ATP level, not including US Open qualifying, played 3+ hours. Now, the crowd, I guess, going to play a factor, very in favor of Wu. But I got to go Bublik here. I mean, if Bublik plays that well, he should win in straight sets. Bublik is in great form. I think he's reached a top 10 player ceiling, which going into the year, I don't think anybody thought he had. But he clearly does. So I'll go with Bublik in straight sets. It's really the plus money for me. I think it's just a great price. Plus money for a guy on the warpath to win in straight sets is definitely the way I want to go about it. Wu is a pretty good server, not nearly as good as Bublik. Bublik's serve has been great on the courts here in Hangzhou. If you want to go for something a bit creative, maybe Bublik team total over. If you want to go for the over in the match, maybe Wu forces a breaker or something. But I think Bublik wins, and I think that this price is very cheap. Home court's important, but I don't think it's this important. I think that it should be 300 or higher for Bublik. Give me the favorite, who I think should be a bigger favorite in straight sets at plus money as my play for this one. Anyway, that is going to wrap it up for the semis. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, Arctic Fantasy. Use them to play Pick'em. You're going to 500 times your entry. Pick higher or lower on your favorite player stats. Available in a ton of sports as well. They have tennis. If you want to go for breaks of serve, aces, double faults, you name it. Also, check out the new deal they have for new customers. Play just $5. Get $50 in bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, which is off to a great start in college football and the NFL. They have a new leaderboard with weekly cash prizes just for tracking your bets in the app. Track 5 bets of the same type from any model you build, and you can win $1K. Also use the promo code SGPN25 when you download the Rhythm app. They get a quarter off your first month. Download Rhythm with the code SGPN25. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the semis in Chengdu and Hangzhou. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go to the first match on the card, actually, between Tabilo and Nakashima. Give me the Nakashima team total over 12.5 at minus 145. This was on Caesars. The shopping around, Caesars went rogue. Most books have minus 160, give or take. BetMGM at 175. But Caesars is just hanging 145, which is a very generous price. I'll take it. Nakashima, we know, is not a great returner, but he is a very good server. And because of that, he's had a lot of long sets. There's been a 7-5 or a 7-6 set in 4 straight Nakashima matches. He's also minus 460 to win at least one set. And in the meeting that he lost against Tabilo, he did not have a breaker in it, and he still got to 13 because it went to 3 sets. So the fact is, the 2 career meetings have been divided 1-1, but he has gone over this team total in both. He's a good server, a very good server, and I do think if Tabilo even ends up winning, it will not be in straight sets. I see it at least one breaker or at least one long set. Maybe it goes 3. Couple of scripts to get there, but I think Nakashima's team total is pretty cheap at 145. I think Caesars hung a number too cheap. I'll take it as my lock for the show. Now, for the dog, a lot of choices. Thought about Bublik, decided not to go that route. Instead, I'm going to go with the other match in Hangzhou. I will go with the Royer and Mutet match. Rinse and repeat, give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 139. Mutet has not been that dominant recently despite being here. He has lost at least one set in 5 of his last 6. So you're looking at Mutet, who so far in this event has lost a set in both matches. Royer, though, said this last episode, has had a bunch of marathons in a row against lefties. It was 5 in a row that have not ended in straight sets. Now it's 6 because his match against TN also went to a 3rd set. So 6 straight for Royer against lefties, not ending in straight sets. Think you'll see a similar breakdown to what I said that would happen in the TN match against him, which is some variety going up against pure pace. You'll see some ups and downs from both guys, and I think that Mutet can win a set by forcing errors, but he's also a head case, and I think Royer can use his firepower to kind of neutralize the court coverage for Mutet for at least half an hour. I think it's going to be a close match either way. Think it should be fun, but I'll keep backing this Royer angle against lefties until he actually ends a match in straight sets. 6 straight, not ending in straight sets against lefties, and Mutet as a favorite is still dropping sets left and right. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 139 as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog for the semis. The lock's going to be on Nakashima. Team total over 12.5 at minus 145. For the dog, I'm going to go with Mutet and Royer. Over 2.5 sets at plus 139. It's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the final for Chengdu and Hangzhou. So keep an eye out for that podcast. Until then, follow me on Twitter, Radio. Good luck to all of you and all.